Happy Star Trek Day, my friends, and most certainly my enemies. If you aren't watching this on the day it goes live, well, happy Star Trek life. Before we get too far into this, I'm going to be spoiling things for the third episode of the third season of Star Trek Lower Decks, entitled Minding the Mind's Minds. Don't think I enunciated that correctly. I'm pretty sure they did that to us on purpose. But what are you gonna do? We start off this episode on an alien world, and the scientist here is getting close to this glowing green rock, trying to figure out what it is, when suddenly it takes the form behind him of an ethereal female whom he knows from his past. Oh no, it's actually not that serious. This is Lower Decks. She was his teacher at some point in history. I guess he had some kind of crush on her, and she's trying to flirt with him and whatever, and it turns out that by touching her, he turns to stone. Dun dun dun. Now my first thought was, well, is this going to be some sort of relation to the green sex candle from TNG's 7th season, that fantastic episode that everybody loves, where Dr. Crusher has relations with a spiritual entity that lives inside a green candle that was part of Space Ireland and kind of had relations with her entire family going back throughout history. Because that's not a creepy concept whatsoever. Nothing about that is bad, icky, or anything. No humor to be mined in that whatsoever. Anyways, after we come back from the credits, we find out that this is an alien world of a silicon-based species, which apparently is not native to the planet, because when they first arrived, they thought it was uninhabited, and this was a colonizing force. I'm not sure, I may have missed that. Why am I trying to suss out actual rational, reasonable things? And this is Lower Decks. Anyways, so we find out here that this is a psychic mine that's left by the enemies because they thought we were an invading force. They didn't know what to make of us. And it's going to bring your fantasies to life. When you interact with those fantasies, I guess it turns you into stone. That's the whole crux of the mission. So the Cerritos crew, as well as the Carlsbad crew, another California-class ship, is going down to the planet to enact repairs and to kind of clear these mines out of the area. That's going to be the crux of the story. We also have a B-plot of Tendi here, who is now doing some sort of science mentorship so she can be promoted. I didn't find that engaging whatsoever, and it had a small bearing on the storyline later, so I'll get to that when we get there. So these are the other crew members, the counterparts of our main cast, I guess you could say, and they are treating our cast as if they are a lower class goofball type of crew, although I suppose that's the thing we're supposed to believe. That's actually not what's happening. It's going to be your classic misunderstanding by the end of the episode, so haha, that's where the humor is going to come. Now, we do have this wonderful cameo here, and I know I complained earlier in the season that we had a couple returning characters of Tuvok as well as Captain Bateson, not voiced by their actors, not voiced at all. However, here we have Dr. Leah Brahms for her third appearance in Star Trek. I think she appeared twice in TNG, and that's it so far. She's been referenced, obviously, more than that, and the actress appear in DS9 as another character, but I think this is the third return of the actual Leah Brahms character and a third different version of her. The first time we met her, she was a hologram. The second time we met her, she was the real version of herself, and she also played the hologram. Now she is playing a fantasy version of herself. I guess this is just all engineers are super into her because she helped design Galaxy-class ships and warp cores and whatnot, so I guess that's the trope here. Kind of nice to see a returning face. That was Rutherford's whole fantasy. Then we go to Boimler's fantasy, which is a admiral telling him he's super important, has to go stop the Borg, blah, blah, blah. And we find out that Mariner is now sort of kind of not in relationship with Jessica, can't remember. Anyways, the Andorian female that we talked to and met earlier in season 2. I guess they've got this sort of a thing going on between them right now that she's not really ready to put labels on. So these are the three fantasies of our main characters. So now we cut back to the ship, and the alien forces are giving a gift to our captain of the Cerritos as well as the captain of the Carlsbad. And there's a whole dichotomy going on of Captain Freeman thinking that he's a younger captain, a less experienced captain. He's thinking of her as old, blah, blah, blah. That's cutting into the misinterpretation that we're going to find out later in the episode. I don't know why I'm teasing it. I'll get there. So then things go south on the planet. We actually break open a bunch of these mines and they turn from fantasies to nightmares. And we get the return of Kukla Khan, or however you want to pronounce it. It was pronounced a variety of different ways in the original animated series, and now it's pronounced a different way here, so that was a fun callback. It was it's a great thing to see in animation. It actually looks beautiful. Then we also have a Borgified snake, a clown Klingon with batleth arms, and what I can only assume is some sort of mutated California raisin, and these are the nightmares of our crew. So we've seen their fantasies, now we're seeing their nightmares. They get trapped inside a cave, and they have to end up working together. They determine it isn't just nightmares. Something more is going on because it is now manifesting things that are not fantasies, not nightmares, just random imagery from their minds. Thoughts, random thoughts they may have had, something they heard earlier on the ship. So there is much more mental stimulation going on here than just a simple mining you for a fantasy or a nightmare. They go further into the cave, find out there's some sort of huge data transmission going on. They break into the door and find, dun dun dun, there's some huge core running on Federation technology, and that's going to be the problem. So cut back to the ship. They're still arguing over the gift from the aliens when Tendi comes up with some sort of readings and smashes the rock to, lo and behold, everyone is now shocked and awed to discover the aliens were working with the miners the whole time. They were using stolen Federation technology to try and get this eavesdropping device put into a Starfleet captain's quarters or ready room in order to, I guess, allow the miners to have black market rights and these other aliens to get rocks on the planet. It wasn't really a very clear motivation. I don't think they really wanted one. They just wanted the crux of the story to go as such, and that's what they wrote. It is what it is. I do like this shot here because we see that the Cerritos and the Carlsbad have, while being similar ships, different hull structure. And I do enjoy that because, as you can recall, at the end of season 2, the Cerritos lost all of its hull plating. That was part of the way they got out of the Pac-Led trap. And at the beginning of season 3, they were getting refitted in space dock or dry dock, whatever you want to call it. So I do like that little attention to detail there on the different hull structures of the ships. So as far as the misdirection I spoke of earlier, it turns out the California-class crews all look at the Cerritos with pride and admiration and they want to aspire to be like them. So they weren't really mocking the Cerritos crew, they were actually in awe of them. And the same goes for the captain of the Carlsbad. He wasn't looking at our wonderful captain as a old-timer who was, well past her prime. He was looking at her as a fine captain, a fine example of Starfleet, someone he wants to emulate and be like one day. So that was the whole misunderstanding that kind of set things into motion. I don't know, I thought it was plainly obvious they were going in that direction, but like I said, this isn't necessarily the deepest show. And then here is the special guest star Susan Gibney reprising her role as Dr. Leah Brahms, although as I said, it's kind of her playing a third different version of Dr. Leah Brahms, which I find completely fascinating to have somebody playing different versions of the same fictionalized character. I mean, that's, to me, just fun. I don't know what else to say about that. So that was the episode. In my opinion, the Tendi storyline was basically, I didn't care for it much whatsoever. And I think that's part of the problem with this show. It's not a very dense show to begin with. And when they start kind of peeling characters off to have side plots, it feels even thinner. I would like a storyline where all 4 of our main characters actually did stuff together, because we very rarely get that. They're always splitting up as far as the main storyline goes, and they're basically only coming together, when they're hanging out together before shifts or after shifts or whatever. So I don't know. I just feel like it would be a little more cohesive of a story if we had a just main plot going on and not trying to structure it to A, B, C plots when we've got a 22-minute show that's already pretty thin, and most of it's going into Easter eggs, callbacks, and fun Star Trek references, and less so into a very, very well-structured, well-thought-out 4-act, 3-act, 2-act story. It's very, very, I don't want to say flimsy, because that sounds like a bad term, but it does feel thin. It feels like there's not a whole lot going on besides the Star Trek references. Maybe that's the point of the show. I know it's supposed to be a fun, lighthearted humor type of show, but I just wish there was a little more meat to it. Even the padding is lying flat. And I definitely liked this a lot more than episode 2 of this season, but I don't know if I even liked it as much as the first one, and a lot of that probably has to do with all the First Contact callbacks and not specifically the storyline. And I know, like, I'm beating a dead horse here by saying, you know, they need to add more story, they need to make it more serious, and that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just something's missing that would make this show from kind of a mid-tier fun diversion into something greater than itself. And I think that is something they could add in, because clearly they have the capability of coming up with decent storylines. They've got the capability of coming up with a lot of Star Trek related ideas, concepts, technology, characters, all of that. It's falling flat for me right now as far as the feeling like I'm watching something worthwhile that's not just disposable. And I think that's going to be the live or die of the longevity of this show. Is it something that you could rewatch and find something each time? Or is it kind of a, you watch it once, maybe you watch it back a second time to try and catch all the Easter eggs you missed, and then there's not much point in watching it again, especially if you're not enjoying the humor, which I find some of the humor hit and miss. There were some mentions and callbacks in here that were quite fun, but I don't know if they'd be as fun once I've already, you know, oh crap, look at that. And now that it's been spoiled for me and I know it's there, I don't know if it's going to be as fun anymore. So maybe this is the type of show where you've got to let a lot of time pass, you know, 5 years down the line, come back and give it a watch with fresh eyes. I don't know. I'm just finding it leaving me feeling a bit hollow, whereas I think, as far as aesthetically and conceptually, this could be filling all the right boxes for a classic feeling Star Trek show reimagined in a comedic 22-minute Rick and Morty-esque lighthearted romp. While Rick and Morty isn't necessarily the best comparison for this show, it is sort of doing what I think the show wants to do. It is taking adult jokes, adult situations, and adult sensibilities as far as humor goes, and trying to give it a lot of theological and philosophical and scientific weight and merit to their storylines, adding in real life philosophical concepts as far as, you know, things go. And I think that's what this show is missing. It's got the adult humor. It's got that style of animation. It is chock full of Star Trek references, technology, characters, but what it's lacking is those really beefy ideas, those really beefy moments that lend Rick and Morty to such a fan base as I think this show was trying to connect with. So I'm rambling at this point. I didn't hate the episode. It was fun for what it was. It's just lacking. So until next time, guys, enjoy your Star Trek day, and I'll see you in the next one.